Hi, so today I wanted to talk about downward facing dog. This can be an uncomfortable posture, it can be challenging, it can be confusing, and I feel like it's a posture that a lot of us don't talk about in our classes. So hoping to help you feel more comfortable in your downward facing dog and demystify what it's all about. So I'm going to start actually with a chair. If you don't have a chair with you, pause the video, go grab a chair, and I will meet you on my mat. So any kind of chair with a back is going to work here. This is some patio furniture that was handy. So I'm going to turn this around so that the back is facing me. So you can see my profile here. The first thing that I want to talk about is what are we actually trying to do in downward facing dog. So I'm doing forward flexion from my hip joint, right? So not bending at the waist and rounding through the back, but a hinging right from the hips. So we're going to use the back of our chair to support us to see what that feels like. So I'm going to place my hands on the back of the chair, and I'm going to step my feet back, and I'm going to hinge from the hips just as far as you comfortably can here. Okay, so I'm just about at a 90-degree angle, right? My feet are on the ground because I'm standing. My legs are straight, and you can see that I'm hinging again from the hips, not rounding through the back. If I push my chair a little bit further away from me and let my chest lower down towards the floor, I'm going to get some really nice extension through my back, through the front of the body, through the shoulders and the chest. Okay, my head is neutral here. If that's intense, then we can bend into the knees. So bend the knees as much as you want here. And think about sending your energy through your head forward and through your pelvis backwards. So we're creating a stretch in opposition here in different directions. I'm lengthening all the way through the spine, bending those knees as much as I want to keep the feet on the ground. Okay, and this is basically our downward dog position, right? Once we're on the mat, we're gonna flip that around and you'll see the similarities. So I'm going to come into this from all fours. This is the way that I like to set up. So if you're feeling quite a bit on the chair in that position, I would stick with the chair version for a little bit. Do a few breaths there, see how it feels. Maybe slowly extending all the way through the legs, but just making sure that we're not rounding through the back or the shoulders. And that's also a really nice option to take the weight off of the hands and the wrists if we've got anything going on up in this area. So the next thing I'm going to do from my mat now is set up on all fours. So you'll see that I'm lining up my knees underneath, actually lining up with the sit bone here. So there is going to be a space between my knees, lining my knees up with the sit bones, right underneath me, and then my feet are lined up right with my knees. So they're not coming in and they're not coming out. I've got nice straight angles here. My hands are coming right under my shoulders, and this is how I'm going to set up for my downward facing dog. Starting just making sure that the palms and all 10 of the fingers are on the mat, and then I'll inhale, tucking my toes, and exhaling, I'm thinking about lifting the hips up and then back. So this is my downward dog to start. I'm keeping the legs bent, same as I did standing, so that I can feel that extension through the chest, through the front of the body. And I can already feel a stretch in the backs of my legs here. So often we come into this thinking, I need to get my feet down, and we end up pushing the body forward, rounding through the shoulders, right? So bringing a ton of weight onto the hands, keeping keeping those legs straight, but I'm coming way out of the position that I actually want to be in here. So bend those knees as much as you want. Another thing that we can do is place blocks underneath the hands to bring the floor up to you a little bit, so you're opening that angle in your downward facing dog. You can put blocks underneath your heels as well to support them. I like leaving the heels in the air and slowly focus on bringing the heels down a little bit closer to the mat. Again, we want our focus here to be up in this area, not on bringing the heels down to the mat. So I'm going to come into my downward facing dog again. And I just want to make sure now that my feet are still in line. So my toes are pointing forward and my heels, I actually can't see them because they're right in line with my toes. So if you could see your heels, that means you're turning out in the hips a little bit on the inside, or if you could see them on the outside, you're internally rotating through the hips. So think about straight feet, all lined up. Keep pushing through the palms and bending those legs as much as you want. And I really like to just start walking through the backs of the legs here. So I haven't warmed up at all for this. And it can feel a little bit intense to start. So I'm going to stay here. This is going to be my downward facing dog, usually for my first couple of sun salutations, until the backs of my legs are warmed up, just focusing on that extension through the front of the body. And you always have options if that isn't working for you in your practice, if it doesn't feel awesome. Child's pose is another really good option here. So big toes together, knees apart, sinking the hips back. And then again, for the upper body part, reaching arms forward, lowering my head down if it wants to come down. So I feel a bunch of extension here through the front of my body, and I'm thinking about letting my glutes release down to my heels. So you can play around with those options, and I hope that they help make your downward facing dog a little more comfortable. Thanks for joining. Namaste.